What's up everyone, Justin here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Got an exciting new project I wanted to share with everyone. This is basically going to consume my life for the next 3 months. And basically, if you've watched my Evora project, I'm basically going to do it in the same fashion. I'll record it pretty much in real time, edit, upload as fast as possible, so you can kind of see the steps as I'm going through this thing over the winter. So the Evora is now sleeping directly behind me. I put it in hibernation now that the snow has hit here in New York. And so I figured it was time to pull the S4 in the garage and finally get to work on this thing. All right, so for starters, this is a 2006 Audi S4. It's a 6-speed and it has high mileage. It's about 180,000 miles. It's a pretty well optioned one. Body's very clean. I don't think there were any accidents. And it's the Avant, which it's got those practical uses, right? I have a family, and so I basically wanted something I could put my kids in, and it has extra room in the back so I could put extra stuff as well. It's also got a roof rack, and when it was running, I was putting my mountain bikes and whatever on the top. It was very useful. Really cool car. I loved it. I love the sound of it. I did put an exhaust system on it from Fast Intentions. It's 2.5-inch True Dual. And it sounded great. I also had the Jackal tune. So if you know about these cars, the reason why I selected it, I've come from a long line of German cars. I had a lot of BMWs, never had any Mercedes, but I've driven them, and Audis and Porsche I fell in love with. I chose this model because it's a V8. 4.2 V8, the BHF is arguably one of the worst engines as far as complexity. They make a lot of memes about it and how crappy it is, and they're all true. It's a terrible engine. It's terrible to work on. It's cramped into an A4 chassis, which was basically only meant for 4-cylinder. And so you got a couple of disadvantages there, but look, I love a challenge. It's basically an adult puzzle for me. And so I wasn't really that intimidated by it. I figured I tackled all the other stuff. Let me just buy one of these and make my life even more miserable. And so far that's been working out. So it's an Audi V8. I love the Porsche V8s, the 4.8. I had a Porsche Panamera Turbo. It was just awesome. Awesome power delivery. I love the way it felt. Even though that was forced induction, still sounded awesome. Just great overall performer. And I also had it in a Cayenne GTS. So anyway, love the engine, perfect. 6-speed manual. I had a Porsche Panamera, like I just mentioned. That was a PDK though. The PDK is about as close as you could get to a manual or like enthusiast-driven automatic transmission, but it's still not the same. You can't really row your own gears, and so I just wanted that satisfaction back of being able to make an error, right, and have a successful downshift. So I want to own that. I want to have the full control. Okay, 6-speed manual, V8, all-wheel drive. I suck at rear-wheel drive. I'll just be honest. I had a lot of fun with rear-wheel drive, but I'm just really not that talented. I don't like drifting. I really don't launch my cars. I don't drive like that. And when I do get spirited, I kind of get nervous. And so all-wheel drive, it gives you a little bit of comfort. Yes, this thing is going to understeer, but I accept that. I'm really not pushing it to those limits anyway. Front-wheel drive is just a terrible option. Overall, physics is totally against it, so never go for a front-wheel drive performance car. Anything over like 250 horsepower, they're pretty much useless. Sorry if that offended anybody, but that's just the way I feel. Anyway, all-wheel drive. Luxury, you know, I'm older. I wanted something I could be a little bit pampered in. I've come from $1,000 Civics. You know, they suck. You could make them really fast or whatever, but I didn't want a tin can. I want, you know, dampening, and I want, you know, noise isolation. So definitely German car is the way to go. And then sporty, right? I want something that handled well. If you know the S4 lineup, this is the B7. The only better one, better handling than this is probably the RS4, but their dynamic suspension, there's a lot of issues with those as well. And so this is like kind of that compromise. And then it's an Avant. So it's a wagon. And you get the wagon practicality that I already covered. So it checks all those boxes. It's V8, it's a 6-speed manual, it's all-wheel drive. I think this one's got the 60-40 split as well. It's because it's the 2006 model, or maybe that came in 2007. I don't really know. It's luxury, your typical Audi luxuries that you expect from 2007 model, 2006 model, and then it's sporty. I did also upgrade the handling, and then I was going to get suspension for it until I had to pull the engine. Okay, now we get to this point. Why is this such a long winter project? BHF engine, V8. If you know anything about Porsche and Audi engines, they don't use the traditional iron sleeves, right? They don't take an aluminum block and then put in like a regular sleeve in it. They treat the aluminum. They'll do Nicosil, Silicil, Alusil, any of the sills. All right. The problem with them is if you get bore scoring, which happens, a lot of people say it's, cold weather contributes it, additional clearance between the piston skirt to the cylinder wall. Some people even blame it on ethanol. Whatever the case, you start to get vertical lines in your cylinders, you pretty much toast. Then the only options are sleeving, which is very expensive. It's like $400 a sleeve. And then you have to machine it on top of that. And you have the risk with mechanically having them in, they could sink and you could get them into, the coolant, you could have coolant issues and whatever, head gasket issues. So sleeving is just kind of like a terrible idea. Unless you go for a pro, right? You pay somebody that really knows what they're doing with these cars. You can bore it out and retreat it, but not everyone recommends doing that. However, the cylinder scoring that I had was so minimal. I gave it to my machinist friend. He looked at it and he said, I think I can make this work. And so I have the block sitting down next to me, and I'll show you that in a second. So I got the engine slightly overboard, just a very minor amount. And then I'm like, you know what? I got to get oversized pistons. I could probably get them from the factory, but I just had custom JE ones made. So forged internals, I have AM tuned rods, the JE pistons, and they're nice rings and new bearings and all that. Sent the heads out, had the heads done. And so this thing's going to be pretty much a rock solid build. Stock, they put out, like 340 horsepower, 302 foot-pounds of torque. I had a Jackal Stage 1 tune on it, and that was actually a very good performer. For a naturally aspirated car, this thing moved very well, but I did want to do forced induction. I first was going to do a centrifugal supercharger. That didn't work out. I had a kit that was being fabricated. It just never came to fruition, so I abandoned it. In the process of getting my money back from that kit, another kit popped up, and I just said, you know what? Out of frustration, I just bought it. And so I have this bad boy. That is a TVS 1900 Magnuson. It's very heavy, so I'm going to put it down. But it's a TVS, so it's not a twin screw. It's a typical Roots type, but this thing is pretty bonkers. The benefit of getting a Roots type or something like this, you just kind of slap it on top. It literally just replaces your intake manifold. And so from a simplicity standpoint, installing, just putting the engine together, I'm putting this in place of the intake manifold. Yeah, I have to do a little bit more with the belts, but you have on-tap power. So it's like a positive displacement essentially. And you don't really have that much complexity. And if I wanted to go back to naturally aspirated, I just remove this and I put the regular intake manifold back on in theory, and then I just have to detune it obviously. So that's the plan. Built engine, supercharger. And then I'm obviously gonna have to do some additional braking, upgrade the braking slightly, more power, you wanna be able to stop. And then I have to do some suspension as well. But that's all, this typical stuff. Anybody can do that sort of thing. I do wanna show you a little walk around the car. So I'm gonna stop the video and then flip the camera around. All right, I just want to get another glance at this very sexy supercharger. So that is gonna be sitting on top of this essentially. This has been sitting here for about 6 months. This is my BHF block, again, fresh from the machine shop. And it's waiting to get the head slapped back on it. So heads are sitting right here. So freshly built heads with all the valve jobs and whatever else is required there. Fully forged internals. And here's my stock intake manifold. And then the rest of the stuff, cams, whatever, new timing, RS4 kit that I have to put on there and all that good stuff. So that'll be fun. Basically, again, that's like an adult puzzle. And all of that's going to be going into this engine bay. I have to clean this up, obviously, I have to detail it. I originally was just planning on pulling the engine, trying to keep the complexity as minimal as possible. I knew the car was going to be apart for a while, so I didn't want to add too many variables, but now that I'm down to this point, I'm going to pull the transmission. I got to go through the drive shaft anyway because there was a vibration there, so I got to pull all this stuff out and clean it up and basically go through the wiring harness, make sure there's no issues with this. Anything that's having any problems, since this car did have 180,000 miles on it, decent amount of heat cycles. I want to make sure that any of these connectors that are bad, I'm replacing now since it's nice and easy. anything that's leaking, replacing all that. So basically just going to go through the entire under hood and under into the drivetrain. So that's that. Interior is actually in pretty good shape. It's got the Panda seats, which are cool. I really like them. This is torn. It's a common issue with this wear. I'm probably going to get this either recovered or I'll just get a good used seat. But the rest of the interior is in really good shape. The guy that had it really cared about it. And so this looks all really good. Headliner is sagging a little bit, so I'm going to have to pull the headliner. You can see it sagging back there. The roof drains are probably going to have to be cleared out. And that's it. That's the rest of the stuff. So I have a lot of performance parts that I'm going to have to put on and prep for the supercharger. I got to get the Clutch Masters flywheel, Ringer Racing Stage 5 clutch I'm probably going to wind up going with. And all of that is going to allow me to put hopefully around 500 wheel horse down, all wheel. That's the goal anyway. Anything more than that would be gravy. But that's really what I'm looking forward to. So again, this is the winter project. I'll be supplying regular updates. And so if you see anything here that you like, then subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks.